I was arrested on the Patriot Act and held under indictment for 5 years, denied a trial, thrown in prison on Carswell Air Force Base for a year, while the government desperately sought to shut me up. I was the chief asset of the pre-war intelligence. I gave advance warnings that there would be no weapons of mass destruction found in Iraq. I warned Colin Powell twice in January of 2003 before his speech at the United Nations with his outrageous, ridiculous allegations against the Iraqi government. I warned him that the Iraqi exiles were desperate liars, fanciful fabricators, and that under no circumstances should he trust anything that they had to say, that the whole thing was a pack of garbage. He turned those letters over to the FBI and demanded that I should be removed from his presence so that he could defend his reputation and whitewash the blood and dirt of American soldiers off his reputation. He should have been court-martialed. The man, Colin Powell, should have been court-martialed, not only because he did lie to the American people and to his fellow officers, but because his lie caused American soldiers to die. And when you have a general who is so cowardly and so dishonest and deceptive and weak that he causes American soldiers to die and violates his oath to protect the Constitution of the United States that he is sworn to defend and uphold as a protector. And this is the man was the head of the Joint Chiefs. No excuses for this, but he wanted the Bush administration to get him out of trouble. And I was to put this in context, he gave his notorious interview with Barbara Walters on 2020 on September 8th and September 8th, 2005. And on September 17th, 2005, the Justice Department rubber-stamped a request to send me to prison without a trial or a hearing. On September 23rd, I was ordered to appear in court and told that if I demanded a hearing, which was my God-given right under the Constitution of the United States, that I would be seized immediately and taken forthwith to prison, that I would forfeit my bail through the end of the proceedings, and God only knows how long that would be. And I believed it. I had a judge, Michael Mukasey, who later became U.S. Attorney General, who meant business. And if he looked at you and said, I'm going to revoke your bail if you demand a hearing, you believe him. And so they gave me, if I agreed to have a hearing after, not a trial, but a hearing after I served my prison sentence. I had to serve my prison sentence, and then we could talk about it. Okay? And then he gave me 10 days only, 10 days to get my affairs in order. And here I was going off to prison for God only knows how long. Had no idea how long I was going to be gone. Once I got to prison, I was supposed to be there only for 120 days. They ended up holding me for a year. And they threatened me. They tried quite desperately, to detain me for up to 10 years. They asked for the rights of indefinite detention without a trial or hearing. My case, and I was locked up on Carswell Air Force Base in a controlled communications management unit, and all political activists need to know what that means. That means a controlled communications management unit is where they are putting political prisoners so that we can be denied the rights of sitting down with a journalist like you. Not only do media requests have to go through the prison, they also have to be approved by the military, because it is handled on a military base. And therefore all requests for communication are reviewed by the military. When my visitation rights, my prison visitation rights, were controlled by the United States military. My uncle, who was also desperately acting as my attorney, jumped into my case fighting to save me. God bless him for it. Ted Lindauer, great attorney, a real fighter. really a hard fighter and saved me. He's the one who got me out of this situation. But he actually came to the prison 3 times. The first time, he was an attorney. He's a senior attorney. He'd done this before. He knew what the ropes are. He's not a novice. He was not straight out of law school. He was not wearing jeans and a tie-dye shirt. He was in a 3-piece suit on a weekend, and he looked like an attorney. And he knows some generals himself, and he knows the law. And he showed up at the military base very professionally and said, "I'd like to see my client, Susan Lindauer." And they looked at him and they said, "There is no prison on this base, and Susan Lindauer is not a resident anywhere or occupant anywhere on these premises. Susan Lindauer is not here. Go away." And my uncle pulled out my uncle is now, he is family. I'm stating the obvious. Obviously, an uncle is family. He is family, and he is an attorney. So you have the U.S. military denying a family member rights of access to a prisoner, and you have an attorney visit that's being denied at the same time. So you have 2 violations of a constitutional right, because a prisoner has the right to have access to family and the right to attorney counsel at all times. And my uncle presented the paperwork from the judge ordering me to surrender to Carswell Air Force Base, and they said, "Oh, well, I don't know why you said that, because why the judge ordered her to come here, because we don't have a prison here. There is no prison here." They just looked him straight in the eye. "There is no prison here." And he said, "I want to see your commanding officer." The commanding officer came out, looked him straight in the eye, said, "There is no prison here. You heard what my sentry said. You're not coming onto this base. We do not authorize you to come. Go away. Go away, or we will arrest you." "Oh, go away or we will arrest you." So he said, "Well, I'm going to file a complaint to the judge." They said, "You just go ahead and do that." So my uncle did. And the judge was notified of this gross violation that family and attorney right visits were being denied. And my uncle, the judge said, "Well, there must be some mistake." And so my uncle said, "Well, I'm going to go back and see her again. And I'm going to tell her you said so." And the second time they went back, he was denied access again, a second time. And this time they said, "Yes, there's a prison on the base, but there are no visiting hours. You're not allowed to see this woman." And meanwhile, other inmates were receiving visitors right around him, and they were like, "You can go in. You can go in. No, Mr. Lindauer, the accused Iraqi agent is not getting a visit today." Okay, so the third time, so then my uncle went back and said, "Your Honor, we protest. We are filing we've already alerted you that this has happened once. This has now happened a second time, and we demand that the U.S. Marshals escort me onto that prison base." My uncle's a tough fighter. It's a Lindauer thing. He's a fighter. He's a good fighter. If you're in trouble, you want my uncle there, because he's going to straighten out the matter. He's not going to back down. And so my uncle had, my uncle demanded that the U.S. Marshals flank him at the gate, and Judge Mukasey was in his chambers waiting, ready to issue the order, because the thing is, a private citizen cannot order a U.S. Marshal to do anything. You see, but the judge, because the difference between the Patriot Act and the NDAA is that, because we had the courtroom, the judge was able to respond to our attorney requests after 2 missed visits, was able to respond and order that the U.S. Marshals would be on hand so that it could be quickly expedited. But a judge had to order that to happen. A private citizen cannot call up the U.S. Marshals and say, "I need you to show up." Only a judge can do that. And so you see the difference between the Patriot Act and the NDAA was that I, as a defendant, though my attorney visits were denied for about 2 months. I mean, think about that. I'm being locked up in prison, and between January and the end of March, I've missed, I've had 3 attempts to see me. And only on the 3rd try, because we had a courtroom to file a grievance and kept filing the grievance again and again, we finally, after 2 or 3 months, get a visit. And then we straightened it out very quickly. And what they showed the judge was that there was no way that I was going to get a fair shake at Carswell. And then at that point in April, the end of April, I was moved to the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City, where I could see my public defender, who was so weak, just incredibly weak, sold me out. I could talk to him face to face. The judge could look at me and see me in his courtroom and see my demeanor. And the judge accepted the government, and then the judge refused to let them forcibly drug me, which was just abhorrent. They actually wanted to forcibly drug me with Haldol, Ativan, and Prozac until I could be cured of the knowledge, the self-knowledge that I had been a CIA asset, working in anti-terrorism, covering the Iraqi embassy at the United Nations, which was a fact. And Judge Mukasey posed an incisive question. He said, to the psychiatrists. Now, Judge Mukasey, we believe, I have to say in his defense, we believe that Judge Mukasey desperately wanted to get my case out of his courtroom, because my case, Judge Mukasey is conservative. He is a Zionist, but he's also a strict defender of the law, and at the time he was one of the finest, best, most famous judges in the entire United States. So he was very much aware of how court decisions that he was breaking ground that would be applied to other cases throughout the country, and that he would be this was very much in my favor, because as a less senior judge with a less of an awareness of his position in history would have, or his legal history, not our history, but legal history and legal precedents, and that less aware that other judges would look to him to, how do I interpret this law? So he was like, I don't want this case in my courtroom. This makes a lot of bad law. Get rid of it. And this is what they gave him to work with, and it's not his fault. You know, this is what my attorney cooked up with the prosecution. And my attorney was a coward and an idiot. And it turned out that there had been a secret debriefing that I was never allowed to know had occurred between my attorney and the Justice Department. And my attorney had signed a non-disclosure agreement that I was never even allowed to know about until the attorney and the prosecutor had a meeting, and my attorney signed a non-disclosure agreement that he would never tell me or any other defense counsel what occurred in that meeting. So he had cover for whatever he was ordered to do. And Judge Mukasey was like, this is just bad law. Get it out of my courtroom. But in the end, Judge Mukasey ruled in my favor and stood by me, but it was a terrible price that I paid for it. But I think that Judge Mukasey would say he split the baby down the middle, and in a case like this, he let me go free, and they called me incompetent to stand trial. And if I'm incompetent, we need to shut down the entire United States court system today, and just everybody to go home. Go home. There won't be any more trials in the United States. You know, but that's just ridiculous. But they tried very hard, and if there had been NDAA in place, I would have been NDAA'd. I was NDAA'd, except for the fact that they did everything they could. I was locked up. They tried to hold me indefinitely for up to 10 years. That was the petition, and I was like, oh my, without a hearing. You know, we were past not having a trial. Without a hearing, they wanted to detain me for up to 10 years, and the judge said no. And if there had been no judge, I'd still be locked up to this day. So I do love my judge. People are surprised to hear me say that, but I do. But we are now. But this is what America has come to after 9/11. And I'm not the only one, unfortunately. I'm not the only whistleblower. Obama has done. We've talked about this. Obama has done. Has filed more prosecutions, even in his first term of office, than George Bush filed in 2 terms of office. And the ramifications are devastating, and it's a tragedy. It's really, you know, I grieve for what's happening to our country. At the same time, I love our country. I think our country is so precious, and I love we do have a beautiful Constitution, and it is worth protecting. And if you have to fight and go to prison to protect it, then it's worth it. I don't regret anything that I did in my life. I mean, there doesn't mean I didn't make some mistakes, but I never committed a crime. I mean, there may have been things that I did that I shouldn't have. That's not an admission of guilt in any way. But nobody has a perfect track record. But I did the very best that I was capable of doing, and I gave the best intelligence. I believe in brutally honest intelligence reporting, because I was and have been always in direct contact with events. And you need, whatever you're going to spin, you need me to tell you the truth. Because I can't, I need to be factually accurate and as detailed as possible so that you know where things are really headed. And the difference is that I believe that it's not only the government who needs the truth. I believe the people need the truth, because the people together, this is our country. These are citizen politicians. This is not a monarchy. These are not, rulers for life. Obama in 2 years is going to be back, or 18 months is going to be back as a private citizen, and all of us are going to have to suffer with whatever he does. Whatever mistakes he makes, all of us are going to pay for. So we need an informed electorate, sunshine on our leadership, and that makes better government. And that's what I try to do, but it's not because I hate America, it's because I love America. And that's the key, that, I don't want to, there's some, the whistleblowers that I know really want to see our country succeed. We want America to be an effective foreign policy or judicial policy or banking policy. Leadership. We want leadership from the United States. We don't want to surrender. I am bitterly disappointed. Some people will say that they're appalled when I say this, but I am bitterly disappointed that we've lost our superpower throne. I really wanted to make a difference. I wanted America to have moral authority, to give good advice, and to lead the country into a positive future. I don't think that China has the vision and the human rights record. Some people will say, well, it's China's turn, but I don't want it to be China's turn. I am very sad that the American century has been cut short. And I feel like we've been cheated, because I think that we, the people, have some really great ideas, and I wish that we could have been I wish that we could still be at the forefront of as a guiding beacon. Maybe that's, not American exceptionalism. I do not believe in American exceptionalism. I think that's wrong. I think that America vision as an aspiration, America as an aspiration, as a dream, and the American dream, which may be naive at times, but I think that we have good things to contribute to this world. And that's what I want, is for America to have our chance, always to have our chance. Because we've got great people here. We have terrible leaders. Terrible leaders, great people.
I was charged under the Espionage Act. I was turned into an enemy of the state. That was bad enough. At least I still had access to the court of law, to a due process. I had rights. And as much as the government didn't like that.
You have power. We are not in a hopeless situation. Simply by standing up and refusing to be ignorant, by letting them know we're not fooled, that false flag operations won't work on us anymore, that we're not duped.